On stream the other day, we had an interesting discussion about Arc Raiders and the current health of the game. Why for some people it may still feel like you've got the world to tackle, and for others, it feels like there's nothing left. It's a nuanced discussion that has a lot of areas you could break down even further, but it's also kind of fair if you wanted to give a general statement of it's a playtime and content issue. Those with hundreds of hours of playtime surely have gotten their $40 worth, but may ultimately feel like there's not much left to do, while those who are only playing a few hours a week still feel as if they've just scratched the surface. With a Flashpoint update coming out in a few days, an update that is the month of March's major content update, it brings along a healthy amount of content and changes, but it's also likely not what some people were still hoping to see. April's Riven Tides update may be that baseline of what you want to see next, with things like a brand new map coming, our first since November. But here's the thing, Embark is aware of this divide, with a lead developer even saying, we want more for them. So how is that going to happen, and what's the plans for future content in Arc Raiders, and how they tackle Endgame in the future? Drop your thoughts as we go along. What do you think of the current situation with Arc Raiders? Still enjoying it? Wish there was more Endgame content? Let me know. But if you enjoy the video, make sure you drop a like on it, as well as make sure you subscribe for more Arc Raiders content. And if you'd like to join in on the conversations as they happen, we're live regularly again, getting back into the routine. Right now, live about every other morning, live tomorrow morning or afternoon, depending on where you're at in the world. We'd love to chat with you, but for now, let's get into it. So Flashpoint is coming this upcoming Tuesday, the 31st of March, and it's an update that's definitely more worthwhile than the last few we've seen. Of course, as we talked about, the sort of cadence of how these updates go out has been a bit more defined by Embark specifically, where the more minor things will be leading off the month in weekly fashions every Tuesday, where some of those will just be smaller, including bug fixes, sometimes having a bigger one by comparison, where you have some weapon tuning like the Il Toro 2 weeks ago, but overall nothing to really write home about. The main major content updates will be following suit at the end of each month here at this, which is what the upcoming Flashpoint update is. I'm exceptionally intrigued by what the new arc will be, how that will perform, what our new weapon will consist of, and most recently as of today, what the new condition will bring along with it, because the official teaser made mention of the pressures on lucrative loot awaits those bold enough to risk it all. So I'm curious what kind of high-level loot that will be if you're using the term lucrative right there in the marketing, whether it's something like a high-tier loot pool akin to Raider caches that we see in the Hurricane condition. Is it a trap that will spawn these new arc if you try and interact with it? It kind of looks like a drop pod, or as some of what we've seen suggested from the teaser audio of the anomalies is something that came up from under the ground. But like, we are going to see a handful of things here that are worth checking out, trying out, but ultimately, as we see with a bunch of stuff, it probably will be something that those players that are starved for more content will of course want more. I mean, that's natural. Like, that's just something that always will happen here at this once you end up burning through and going through all of what's on offer here at this update. So that leaves the door open for the future. And where our discussion turns to a recent interview between Games Radar and Arc Raiders production director K.L. Braga, where they talked about plenty of things. But for the sake of this discussion, let's talk simply about a small excerpt in which they were talking about how they wanted to handle things in the future. He said that this is one of the things that they want to keep working on. They want to challenge the players, especially the players that are reaching the end of our content. We want more for them. I want them to have more to do, and because they are at the end of it, it's also important that we challenge them more and more. It's something we want to continue doing, but always giving players tools as well, so that other players can partake in the fun. So the team wants to keep expanding and offering content. Clearly, any development team in their right mind wants to do that, but we have to consider constraints and the evolution of the game and why we haven't seen that happen quite just yet. Arc Raiders' first Endgame, if you want to call it that, with the launch was the Queen, right? Like, that was the big bad boss you had to beat. It took quite a bit of time to build up your arsenal and then end up taking it down with your squad, potentially with other squads out there, and to make it out alive, because depending on how your matches were going, somebody could just wait at the very end of that gunfight and gun you down, take everything else. So it was this big giant gamble to get in, take down the boss, and get out. Then we saw the Matriarch roll around, where that could probably classify in that category another set of like a boss fight for Arc Raiders. Next month, we'll see another large arc introduced that maybe can contend with all of this as well. So initially speaking, it seemed like the original plans for Endgame were these big bad bosses. But as with every game you'd have in a live environment that doesn't come up with credits and a hard stop ending when you beat that big bad boss, players keep playing. They keep exploring, maybe doing those boss fights over and over and over again until, well, there's not much left to do. It's one of those scenarios that unfortunately is just outpaced by gamers. In the most endearing way possible, we're nerds. If you put 200, 300, 4 hours into something, obviously you're going to find things have become stale, and realistically, your consumption far outpaces the pace of development. While I would love for things like a new map to come more than once every 5 months, I can guarantee you that what we see after next month's update, give it a week or so, people will be right back to being bored of it. Not even in like an aggressive or like demeaning manner saying that, but more so just the fact that it's factual, that people will burn through that, play it to their heart's content, and then feel like there's not much more for them to discover on it. Because again, consumption far outpaces development. So the question is, what is the evolution of the end game here at this? What is something that brings players back in that larger, grand capacity of trying to get to that certain level of something beyond just the new map, beyond just the new enemy archetype that is a new boss style arc? That's where it's entirely speculation, and frankly, any idea can go, but you also have to keep in mind an expectation that pivots do take time. So what's next? If the Queen, Matriarch, etc. are phase 1 and 2 of Endgame, next month's update maybe introducing phase 3 of that, but how do you shift that focus then? Do you do something akin to what Marathon did? I know that there's some people that absolutely just hate any mention of Marathon, but listen, if we're honest with ourselves here, that Cryo Archive reveal and run-through was honestly pretty sick. A community ARG to unlock it, a required gear floor, meaning you have to take the best gear that you have, something ARC players have asked for quite some time, and it's even been acknowledged by the devs that it's something in their mind. Then you have a ton of puzzles to work through in that, and then you get to a dungeon or raid style final boss fight that grants you the rarest loot in the game in an entire loot room made accessible only after completion. Now, that's pretty sick. Minus the loot room, does it kind of sound like some extra steps on top of like the shell and the basic skeleton structure of going against the Harvester and Queen for things like the Jupiter and Equalizer, solely in the context of like a final boss fight? Sure, but they're pretty cool extra steps in my opinion. Now, the longevity of something like that is still in limbo because it's only a week old at this point to see it out there, but it seems like people who took part in that, who played in that, really enjoyed it. Perhaps it doesn't take shape and it's not something that lasts as long. Perhaps it's something that is just the sort of basic outline for what will then end up being seasonal iterations of a sort of boss fight and other puzzle-based loot floor style maps. We don't know. So do you do something like that, like a gear and level-based map that requires you to grind before entering, requiring plenty of world exploration, puzzles completed, and so on before you gain access to it? Do you have an ultra high tier loot tethered to a large boss battle? Do you do something like implementing another challenge system, something that tasks you with in-world events and seasonal cosmetics or other rewards upon completion? Do you introduce more frequent map updates like we saw with the controlled access zone on Dam, more fortified loot locations to explore on a regular cadence? Do you introduce a new system of missions parallel to that of the quest that allow you to scavenge, gather materials for traders or someone, and then trade those for blueprints, currency in-game, or something else depending on difficulty? How do you reward the ultra grindy stuff with worthwhile replayable gameplay loops that is additive, something that doesn't detract from anything existing, but adds another layer of that gameplay for all interested in it? That, I think, is the million-dollar question that I myself don't have the answers to. You may not have the answers to. Embark may still be trying to figure it out, but they don't have the answers just yet. And it's almost certainly going to be something, however this pans out, that it's not going to please everyone. Arc Raiders has kind of hit that status of, well, it's not a niche game anymore. There's so much mainstream attention on it that somebody's going to be upset with something done here at this. But it does at least seem to be something that's considered at the moment the future and how you rework that end game level of content, or at the very least, add more to it. Now, when can we expect this? That's, of course, the next big question here at this, and it's really all, again, speculation, because this could be something that, from launch, has been worked on. Maybe this next update is an overhaul of some kind in April, where we have, again, maybe a map like that it is a high-tier exclusive map. I don't think that's going to be the case if it's the map we think it's going to be, because that looks like a larger map rather than something that's a bit more confined and a bit more grindy. But for the point of discussion here with this, it could be something that has been acknowledged and worked on, iterated for the last couple of months. However, if this is only something that is being discussed now, we're still months away from what we see in terms of something being introduced. So it could be something that's right around the corner or still a ways off. Development, unfortunately, is slow going, especially when you don't have the luxury, or maybe oppositely, too many cooks in the kitchen type of situation going on with games like Call of Duty that has a dozen studios working on the game every single year, thousands and thousands of developers themselves pouring their effort into it, that they can streamline some of that stuff. In that interview with Games Radar, it was mentioned that Embark's team for Arc Raiders is about 120 people now, so it's a much smaller and much slower going thing by comparison to, again, these big blockbuster titles that you'll see here at this. So Timing, unfortunately, is still a massive question mark. But for those who have concerns about Endgame and the sort of why am I still playing this, it seems like that is something that's being considered and taken to heart here for the future. So as for when, of course, again, that's still a big question. But anyways, I want to fill you guys in here with this because I do think it's important to have these conversations here, and it's important to see that this is recognized by the development team for those that do end up having these complaints. Myself, I'm still loving the game, still having a blast, so the content here on the channel is still going to, of course, continue as we have been doing, but just want to share this because, again, it's a nice conversation to have. So let me know your thoughts down below. Drop a like if you guys enjoyed the video. Make sure to subscribe for more Arc Raiders content. And of course, if you want to join the conversations as they happen, we're going live more and more here on the channel and over on Twitch. So I'd love to have you out there for that. But anyways, thanks so much for watching. Mine has been Espresso. I'll see you later. Take care and peace.